The 49ers' very first unofficial depth chart of 2023 has been released, and tons of 49ers on the NFL 100. And how about the day for the quarterbacks? Not great at 49ers camp. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is a very special day of the week for those of you who are everydayers and are subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. You know what it means. That means it is another Winky Wednesday. So we have our esteemed guest, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host, the Gold Faithful pod, long before, not that long before. It's been a little while, though, now, since before the Locked On 49ers days. Mr. Nicholas Winkler joining us today. Nick, how you doing, man?
Hey, it's funny you mentioned that. I took my kids to see Beck in Concord over the weekend, and my son, I said, hey, go upstairs, pick out the clothes that you want to wear. And shortly after the Gold Faithful podcast came out, my wife made some T-shirts that say like Gold Faithful Podcast 49ers. And so he picked that and he wore it. And at one point, somebody's like, hey, Gold Faithful Podcast. Yeah. And I was like, hey, all right. So whoever that was, if you're listening right now, love it. Love the shout out.
Concord. Recognized at the Concord Pavilion. I like it. Was
great.
It in Concord Pavilion? Is that where the show was?
Yeah, Concord Pavilion. It was Phoenix Open. It was a great show.
All right, guys. The big moment that everyone is waiting for, the 49ers' first unofficial depth chart. And it is unofficial because it's the PR staff that puts it together. This isn't Kyle Shanahan's depth chart, but it's based on what happens at practice and what the PR staff sees. And sometimes there's stuff that's way off that doesn't even match up with how they're doing things at practice. But they get pretty good at getting together and figuring out how to put these out because it is a press release. It's PR. They don't want to rock any boats. They don't want anything to be weird. But obviously, the big thing that everyone's going to look for first is what's the quarterback depth chart look like? And to nobody's surprise, nobody should be surprised when they see Brock Purdy, number 13, is QB1 for the 49ers, taking all the QB1 reps when he's been at camp and practicing. Trey Lance, though, guys, listed as number 2. Sam Darnold listed as number 3, except there's a word right in between, or. Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. I love the or on the depth chart, and the 49ers gave it to us. So it is a competition for number 2 between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. Lance listed first, though, guys.
Yeah, that's exactly.
PR, understanding the optics of the situation.
Exactly right. They're not dumb. And there's another or on there, too. I don't know if you noticed it or not.
I noticed it.
Yeah. Moody or Gonzalez is like, oh, okay, not letting the rookie run away with it just yet.
I do want to talk about the kickers just for a second, and this probably be the most time we spend on them, at least for right now. But the Dallas Cowboys, their kickers have been atrocious. They had to cut a guy. I mean, we're talking about each guy missing 10 plus kicks throughout camp. And I'd say kind of up until like the last couple of days, 49ers quarterbacks have been very efficient. And the kickers have been just as efficient, if not better. If I had to guess right now, because I haven't looked at the numbers in a few days, there might be 3 total misses between the 2 kickers, like throughout the entirety of camp. And we're not just talking about short kicks. Today, Tuesday, August 8th, the 49ers rookie Moody banged through 2 60-plus yard kicks. So we're not even talking about guys just hitting chip shots here and there. They are blasting them. I was at practices where they're kicking 55-plus yards. So we kind of gloss over the kicker competition, or it's not really a competition. I think we all know who's going to end up starting, the guy that you spent a 3rd-round pick for. But the guys have been really good between the both of them. So now here's my question to y'all, and I know we'll get to the rest of the depth chart. Can the Niners potentially flip Zane Gonzalez for a draft pick? Because it sounds like the Dallas Cowboys could use him.
How about this? I've got multiple answers to this question. And look, this is a rigged competition. Really, it was make sure the rookies not terrible and is making kicks. And Moody's been awesome. So he's going to have that job. Unless he starts shanking him in the preseason when the lights are on. So, he's not out of the woods quite yet, but man, it's been cool to see both. I mean, it's unbelievable. They're making everything, but it's kind of like, you ever seen an NBA player warm up? They're 80%. They're 80%, 90% from three in warm-ups, right? They hit everything. 40% is really good, the NBA, right? For 3 points. So we'll see. We'll see when there's actual, real rushes happening, real games, real crowds. But yeah, right now, both kickers are looking as awesome as you could ask for. I'll throw two things out there. One for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I don't know how Robbie Gould already hasn't signed with the Dallas Cowboys. So that's the thing before we even start talking about Zane Gonzalez. And I called this a while ago.
You did. I was going to say, I saw someone bring your tweet back up, and I don't know if you saw it on. So do we even say tweet or do we say X? I mean, I don't even know what to call it now.
I think they're going to be tweets forever.
Tweets forever. All right. So I saw your tweet and it said, how about this? And you put out the scenario of Robbie Gould kicking the game-winning kick for the Dallas Cowboys against the 49ers. And someone, I think it was when the Cowboys missed tweets were, going out, the missed field goal kicks, someone brought your tweet up. And I said, wow, I do remember him saying that.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to happen, right? But, and I don't know how the Cowboys, with what they had it was Brett Maher. Is that who it was? Last season, it was a disaster for them, right? And then how they not fix that better than what they did? The Niners got two kickers and had Robbie Gould and let Robbie Gould walk, and ended up, they had three chances, and it looks like they would have hit on all three of them. The Cowboys can't figure it out at all, so maybe they'll go spend some money on Robbie Gould now. Maybe they'll trade for Zane Gonzalez. I think he does have some value. The Niners traded for him, so a team that needs a kicker, and it's like a conditional seventh or something from 2025. It's basically nothing. But I bet the 49ers could get a little something. Here's the question, though. I'll ask you guys. Who gets more in trade at the end of August, Zane Gonzalez or Trey Lance?
It's Trey Lance. He's looking good
right now.
Come on.
Well, right now, you got to say Zane Gonzalez. If he's booming these 55-plus yards, he's not missing at all.
None of Zane Gonzalez's kicks have gotten intercepted in practice.
Right, but here's the thing. You just wait, because the Niners aren't keeping two kickers. You just wait. They're going to cut one, and you scoop them up. You don't need to trade for him. As for Trey Lance, you would probably need to go trade and go get this guy. So his value's got to be higher.
Typically, Nick, I would agree with you. But 49ers, they do all kind of weird things. And sometimes
you're not wrong.
Don't like to let guys go. So if Zane Gonzalez continues to do this well, they might just say, you know what?
Kickers?
We might as well just keep two kickers. I feel like they're very indecisive when it comes to things like that.
I can already hear Kyle Shanahan saying it at a press conference when they ask him about the final 53-man roster. He's like, well, I thought we had 4 starting quarterbacks. And he keeps all 4 of them. He's like, I thought we had 2 starting kickers, so we kept them both.
I'll never forget that teams were coming to the 49ers about potentially trading for Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. And he just was like, no, we got 3 starting quarterbacks. Can't let CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins go.
Well, I saw an old depth chart that someone posted that had the exact same thing. It was 2019. It said Jimmy Garoppolo, CJ Beathard, or Nick Mullins on the first unofficial depth chart. So the 49ers have been doing this for a while.
And who did they end up going with as the number 2?
Mullins.
Yep.
We knew at the time too that it was a little bit different then, and maybe it is not as different, but at the time it was like they're writing down CJ Beathard because I guess he was drafted higher, but Mullins is the better quarterback. And a lot of people are saying that it's rigged for number 2 as well, and Sam Darnold has got the job no matter what, and they're just waiting to make that flip. But I don't know. We'll see.
How much stock they're putting into that game this weekend? I mean, is it huge for Trey Lance? Is it just like, here you go, this is your chance?
I think it's huge.
Darnold.
Both guys. It's huge. I think this is the writing is gonna start being on the wall after this preseason game. Obviously, like you have the 2 practices. Those are going to be big time, but then definitely like that preseason game, what does it look like? What's the feel? And now everybody's going to get the chance to see this. You come out looking sharp, you do well, then I'd be surprised if you don't start seeing some more like legit changes But now they might give both guys like the same opportunity. Hey, one guy starts against Las Vegas, the other guy starts against whoever they play that following
They
week.
have to.
That's for sure
They
what they're
have
going
to
to
do that.
That's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what Kyle's waiting for. He's just waiting for that moment where he could flip him. He's like, well, I'm just giving Darnold the first crack because this week he's going to run with the twos because he's going to play first to make it even. And then he never flips it back. Maybe that's been his grand plan all along.
He definitely has one. You know he does.
I think he does. I think it's the only thing he doesn't have a plan for is how the heck to figure out his quarterback position.
No, he wants 13 to just carry it, right? And just
He's the real
play
deal.
all
He said it.
17. Yeah.
He said it. He's the real deal. Like Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback. There's never been an opportunity. There's no chance it was going to be anybody else if it was healthy.
That has been the weird thing where like after like some of the last practices, I've seen guys say like Brock Purdy, he's your undoubtedly unquestionable starting quarterback. And I'm like, that's been the case this whole time.
Right.
Like nobody's questioning that. They're trying to figure out one, who's going to be the backup quarterback, and two, our biggest question was, or at least mine was, how was it that Trey Lance had zero opportunity after breaking his leg week 2? And it's like, we used a lot of draft picks, still a small sample size from Brock, 8 games, more than Trey's sample size, but still a small sample size, and you have no chance to even compete. I thought that was a little interesting. But as far as like just who's the starting quarterback, I thought everybody just knew it was Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Well, the
sample only size question was if he was going to be healthy or not. Like that was the big thing. And that was more so in February when we're like, man, they keep pushing this thing back. Okay, it's March now. We're doing the math on it. Okay, 6 months from now and 3 months from here. And is it going to line up and is it going to be ready in time for week 1? But we all knew if he was ready at any point before week 1 and get some time under his belt, he was going to be unquestionably the starting quarterback. Or at least that's what I feel.
Yeah. Well, all right. More on the quarterbacks, how they did at practice on Tuesday, the final practice before they take Wednesday off and travel to Las Vegas for some joint practices. And we'll take a look at the 8 49ers that made the NFL 100 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania is here again, and it is bigger than ever. August is here, and of course, you know what that means. It's official start of fantasy football drafting month. I've already done a couple of best balls at Underdog. I did a quick one. They've got slow ones where it's 8-10 hours between picks. I'm doing a slow draft right now. I'm about 5 rounds into that one. I love doing the best ball drafts to get ready for your fantasy season, and that's the best way to get championship ready for your home league with Underdog Fantasy Best Ball. No waivers. It's a live snake draft. No trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week, all season long. So whatever your best lineup could have possibly been that week, those are the points that you get in Best Ball League. So try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back. $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July. So don't wait around. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. So let's talk about the quarterback since we're already on that subject, and then we'll finish up with the NFL 100 as voted on by players in the NFL. So according to most reports, the quarterbacks didn't have a great day. Sounds like the 49ers defense won the day on Tuesday as they get ready to go to Las Vegas. And to be honest with you, it'll probably be a blessing for the quarterbacks and the 49ers offense to play against the Raiders defense and not the 49ers first team defense. So we might see Brock Purdy's best practices of this preseason so far happen in Las Vegas.
I think
Do we think that Purdy's going to see a lot of time in these practices?
Yeah, well, Kyle said he's
kinda...
not. I think so. Here's the thing, and it makes total sense when you think about it, because Kyle said Brock is going to practice in the joint practices, not playing the game, and I think it's because in the joint practices there's less chance of him getting hit, and you're still not supposed to hit the quarterbacks. It's still practice mode, and in the game, he could get blindsided off the backside, with the pass rush. They're going to wait a little bit longer on that and put him in week 2 of the preseason. So and Kyle made it seem like he wasn't going to see much preseason at all.
I was going to say, I'd be surprised if he plays at all in the preseason.
I mean, I want to see him knock off some of the rust because he hasn't really it's if it was a competition, it would be close between all three quarterbacks, I think.
But it's not,
right? Based on what we've seen in practice, because it's not like Brock has separated himself by being amazing in practices. Maybe he's doing things that Kyle likes better than the other guys. But he won the job in December last year. He didn't win the job in August this year. And so I'd still like to see him knock some more of that rust off before the season starts. I don't know how much time he needs for that, but a little live game action before you roll into week 1 and you got TJ Watt going up against Colton McKivitz.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's being treated like he's Justin Herbert. Like you just know, I got Justin Herbert. Like, dude's he's the man. He's the guy. I think there's still some questions that Brock has to answer. Again, answered a ton last year. The biggest question now is just, can you do it again? But I do agree that he won the job more so in December and January as opposed to training camp where there was no competition. But if you just go out there and watch and they didn't know, if you, let's say Winky, you took your wife out there and she doesn't know who's who, and you said, hey, to this practice, tell me which guy is a starting quarterback. She'd probably say number 13 because he took the most snaps. But outside of that, just based off of how they play, you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
So, I think from that standpoint, you would like to see him participate a little bit more in preseason just to, if there is more of rust going on and you have some questions about, taking care of the ball and those type of things, or maybe, I don't know, I feel like I'm the only one that's been concerned with that. Like, he's throwing interceptable balls and picks every practice, like at what point do those things start to calm down? But I would like to see him get out some of those things in preseason, in live action, because how's your decision-making? If you're throwing these interceptable balls and picks in practice where you can't get touched, then what is it going to be like in live action when you actually can get hit? What's your decision making then? So if it's just a little bit of rust that he has to shake off because, hey, I haven't taken a hit and I'm still getting used to the timing of everything, then I would say, he needs to play in a preseason game. It doesn't have to be the Raiders because you got the joint practices. But after that, can I get you on one? Can I get you just playing for a quarter? And it's interesting, the NFL is kind of going away from playing guys in preseason. I saw a tweet from Chad Johnson, and he said, man, Carson and I loved preseason because that was a big opportunity for us to get on the same page in live action, live reps, while you can get hit. So we'd love to see him out there with the guys, with Ayuk, with Debo, and knock off a little bit more rust if that is indeed what's going on in training camp.
Yeah, for me, I don't really worry too much about the practices and the balls that he's getting picked off and getting batted down and stuff because you're practicing, right? You're trying new stuff. This isn't the same stuff that they're running last year. I mean, I'm sure some of it is, but he's going up against the number 1, right? This is going to be the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL most of the time, right? I mean, we're talking about the best guys, and that's what you want. And I want Brock Purdy to try things. I want him to learn some new plays and to mix some new things into this offense. So I kind of like that he's throwing these balls. I mean, I don't want him to do it in the game, obviously. That's very, very different. And when you go into a preseason game, isn't that just like vanilla offense? Aren't you just out there running stuff? You're not showing your hand, right? For week 1, week 2, you're not showing anything new that's not already on tape. So for me, I would be okay if he doesn't take a single snap in the preseason. I'm cool with that.
There was one more note actually on the unofficial depth chart, guys, because there was another or. It just didn't have the word or because I don't think there was enough room. But Tyrion Davis-Price and Jordan Mason are kind of stacked up together as running back 3. So I think there's a pretty good battle there. And with Elijah Mitchell's injuries, that's an important battle because that's the backup. You're one play away and probably getting a lot of snaps if Elijah Mitchell's not ready to go in week 1 or any week of the season. So that's an interesting one. And it's funny, Croc, because yesterday we talked a lot about Ty Davis-Price and how good he's been practicing. He got laid out by George Odom apparently today on a play. And then we also talked about how Jair Brown wasn't making a bunch of plays in practice. And then he picked off Sam Darnold in practice Tuesday. So there you go. They
out, guys.
Shout out to Ty and Jair for being everydayers out there and
I know. I think the other day, we had talked about how quarterbacks taking care of the balls, and then all of a sudden, Brock Purdy threw a pick, Trey Lance threw a pick, and then now you have Sam Darnold. He's throwing a pick. And I'm like, man, these guys have been, more specifically Sam Darnold and Trey Lance taking care of the ball. But just seeing the guys kind of take the ball away. And then I'd say receivers too. Willie Snead. This is a guy we're like, hey, man, Snead, Conley, man, like these guys, they're coming on hot right now. What does it look like? And then next thing you know, today, they're dropping passes. And by all accounts, everything that I was reading from today's practice, 6 or 7 passes were dropped by the receivers or tight ends, 2 by Cameron Latou. And we haven't talked about that tight end 2 battle, but it feels like from all the practices I went to and what I continue to see, the kid out of Oklahoma is running away from that, like that battle. Whatever battle there was, Willis is, I mean, he's just, I need that. Like, I need that spot.
And those are huge battles in the preseason game. We're going to have a podcast talking about what we're looking for in the preseason, Croc, with all these players. But Braden Willis listed behind Latu on the depth chart. Latu's listed there at tight end 3 with Ross Dwelly. Then it's Fumagalli and Braden Willis battling for the tight end 4 spot. There's the PR again, the PR depth chart, and they got to stack. They got to get all the names in here, so too much shouldn't be looked at it. But Charlie Warner listed as the second guy in the tight ends. But that might be the number one preseason, like legitimate preseason battle that has the most opportunity for movement on the depth chart is the tight ends behind George Kittle. Willis
has gotten a lot of targets.
I mean, he's looked like the second best tight end in camp. Period.
Has he been running with the ones at all, or is this all second, third
team
action? Okay.
No. Okay. I've seen him on the coverage units too, and that's another indicator, that you'll be potentially on the roster because he can do a lot of things for you. So he can back up at fullback. I want to see him if they use him in the backfield because that'll be another key. They're like, look, we can have one guy play special teams, be tight end 3, line up in the backfield, and be the backup tight end for juice if we need it. Can be the H-back and move around. That'll be a huge indicator in those preseason games with Braden Willis.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be fun. Real football. I'm getting ready for it. I'm feeling it in my bones. How about the NFL 100 guys as voted on the players? 49ers had 8 of them. Let's get into that list next. Thank you once again, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can become an everydayer. Just subscribe up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Okay, here is the NFL Top 100. The NFL players voted on this. So this is, I'm sure it's really nice for the players to have other players voting them onto the list. And the 49ers led the league in how many stars they had on this list. And it starts with Nick Bosa. The top 15 was finally released, and Nick Bosa is number 4 in the entire NFL behind only Patrick Mahomes. Justin Jefferson was 2, and Jalen Hurts was 3. And so Nick Bosa ahead of all the other big names in the NFL comes in at number 4 on the list. You've got Trent Williams, 14. Right behind him, Fred Warner, 15. George Kittle, 19. So 4 in the top 20. Christian McCaffrey, 35. Deebo Samuel, 61. Talanoa Hufanga, 78. And Dre Greenlaw at 79. So interesting. A lot of
no Brandon Ayuk.
No Ayuk.
Not yet. Next year.
Yeah, he's coming.
That maybe that Bosa contract's being held up because wait, let's just wait till Nick's name gets thrown out there so that we can start negotiating with, we're talking about the number 4 overall player voted by his peers here.
Yeah, it's like, well, the number 1 guy got a $500 million contract for 10 years.
Right.
Jalen Hurts just got, $50 million a year. Justin Jefferson's going to go crazy with his contract too. So,
I mean, it's a lot of top guys at their position there for the 49ers. That's impressive.
Well, that's why it's interesting when people talk about who has the best roster in the NFL.
Yeah.
And the 49ers aren't just top heavy. Guys that not mentioned like Travarius Ward, Gibson, and how well he's played for the 49ers. And they have a lot of contributors everywhere. I mean, Eric Armstead, he's not on that list. So
great though. I believe he wasn't he like exactly number 100? Or no, Jimmy Ward was 100 last year. Jimmy Ward and Armstead were both on the list last year, weren't they?
Yeah. So again, the 49ers, they're not even just a top heavy team. They have a lot of guys that are like terrific key contributors.
I'm shocked that Bosa was voted over Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald at 11 on the list.
He had a down
8.
It wasn't the best year.
It wasn't the best year. I mean, they had Chris Jones ahead of him. I was a little surprised to see that. And Chris Jones, he is terrific. He's a monster. I mean, he single-handedly kind of – we think about Mahomes in the Super Bowl against the 49ers and Tyreek Hill and those catches, but Chris Jones batted down 2 passes that would have been first downs that really would have put the game away. So this is a guy who is terrific. But Aaron Donald, he's the Reggie White, at least of my generation. You know, he's the Lawrence Taylor of my generation. Like that guy that's just – this is the best player. And Watt, he was that for a while, and I think even Aaron Donald, with what he's done, he's kind of even surpassed what Watt was at his peak. And I mean, he was tremendous. But to see, you know, guys kind of get a little bit ahead of Aaron Donald, who it doesn't feel like he's fallen off, but he did miss some time due to injury last year. Their team was kind of banged up. I'd be shocked if he doesn't come back and it's like, oh, yeah, there he goes. There's Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Must not have been very many offensive linemen voting on the list, right? If anybody's played against Aaron Donald would probably have him number 1 if they had to try to
up there.
Right.
And, you know, maybe Dan Brunskill was one of the voters.
Ayo.
All right.
Or maybe the 49ers, right, with having Daniel Brunskill just kind of, you know, really slow him down a whole lot. And they're like, man, we've been watching Aaron Donald on film. He does nothing against us. Like, that guy's not there. He's overrated.
I mean, I do think do you think you guys put more stock into a list that's put together by like analysts more than a list that's even put together by the actual players? I think I don't think the players necessarily do an amazing job at grading themselves or each other, as weird as that sounds.
I don't believe in any other list. I mean, it's just they're all a lot of bias going on. What you see the most of, or who you feel like, oh man, I'm supposed to put this guy right here, so I'm gonna put him up. So all those lists, it's fun to talk about. I think they do a terrific job of, you know, just generating conversation among social media, the fans, but ultimately, especially with the players, half these dudes don't even watch football.
Or they don't really care about the list and don't take that much time. And they're just like, oh, I don't know who had the most rushing.
I know
yards.
these names.
Josh Jacobs, you had the most rushing yards. I'm going to put you in the top 10 because Josh
Jacobs
should be in the top 12 of this list. He shouldn't be one spot behind Aaron Donald.
Oh man, we played against Christian McCaffrey. And he ran through 3 guys, bounced off another guy, ran into the touch. Like, man, Christian McCaffrey's tough. Yeah, he's got to be number 1. No. We played against Josh Jacobs and he ran for, you know, because there's a big discrepancy there. I saw a lot of people upset about Christian McCaffrey, where he was, and then Josh Jacobs, he was like the top.
Who would you rather have on your team, right? Josh Jacobs or Christian McCaffrey? Come on.
There's not a single GM in the league that would take Jacobs over McCaffrey. Probably.
I don't think so. See, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think
the Raiders don't even want to give
contract
Jacobs a contract that's less than what Christian McCaffrey makes, and the 49ers are paying his salary and traded all that to get him. So that's
smart, though.
How much the 49ers like their guy versus how much the Raiders like their guy.
That's smart business. They've been seeing these guys get paid, and then usually a lot of times they fall off a cliff. So I don't even think, and most people tell you, a lot of times you don't get paid for what you've done. You have to get paid, especially these big contracts, what they feel like you're going to do. And obviously, like what you've done kind of factors into that. But if they feel like, we don't know how much longer he can be productive like this, I don't want to pay you. I wouldn't pay running backs in general. So, I mean, they fall off so quick. Ezekiel Elliott, he was at the peak of his powers. He was top 3 running back in the league, if not, you know, number 1, like best running back. Like he's right up there.
Ran him into the ground.
And then all of a sudden, it's like somebody snapped a finger and it's like, you are a change of pace back, and actually, you can't even get signed to an NFL team. Like, where is Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah, at home.
He's a free agent.
That's why. Yeah. So you see that. Why would I?
He'll get signed somewhere. Because it's Jonathan Taylor keeps holding out. If Josh Jacobs
when did Christian McCaffrey get paid? When did Christian McCaffrey get paid? Before or after he missed the majority of 2 seasons before getting traded to the 49ers?
You're right.
Yeah, before.
See, so it's like he got paid, then all of a sudden he misses multiple. They probably thought
it was in the middle.
It was in between, because there was 2 seasons where he missed time. I think it was after the first one. Then he had that other injury after that, right? Is that how it was?
Yeah. Then he missed a bunch of games, and then all of a sudden go to the 49ers. It's like, oh, I'm amazing again. But like that's the worry for. So when we talk about the running backs and Josh Jacobs, just from a pay standpoint, I understand not wanting to pay him. Can I find another running back in the 4th round?
And that's one of the things, and people still come at me. They're like, "Oh yeah, what do you think? The Christian McCaffrey, that was totally worth it, right?" And like that, you know, And I'm like, look, don't use the Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers situation because of how good he was with the 49ers. Don't use that as like the logic of, oh, that worked out great. Let's do that again. Let's keep doing that.
The exception.
That's not the lesson.
Rule.
This should be learned here. That is definitely not the lesson.
Yeah, I'm with you. Will this thing ever get to like an incentive-based program for stuff like that, where it's like, look, if you're good and you go out there, you're going to prove it, then you'll make your money, right? I mean, to me, as a business person, that makes the most sense out of anything. But I understand guaranteed contracts and stuff like that. But, you know, I know that Saquon, didn't he just do something like that where he got another 900,000 like worked in there for incentives?
I think the biggest thing for that's what's crazy about the Josh Jacobs thing. I don't know how Josh Jacobs doesn't already have the exact same thing that this Saquon got, unless he doesn't want it. You know, maybe he wants more or wants something different. But the big key with the Saquon contract is they basically bought him out of his franchise tag, gave him $1 million more or whatever than he would have gotten with the franchise tag. But they gave him there's language in there so they can't tag him again. So he will for sure be a free agent. So that was kind of the key there. And I don't see why Josh Jacobs wouldn't want to do the same thing. Then you're a free agent. You don't have to worry about it. Go pay. Then you're on the free market and you have teams bidding for you. That's how the 49ers ended up trading a lot for Christian McCaffrey. They're bidding against the Rams. You know, they probably wouldn't have to give up as much if they weren't bidding against the Rams, but they went the extra amount. And
I think they'd be split. We started off talking about the McCaffrey versus Jacobs and where they're at. I'd say owners might be split. Or I think it'll be a lot closer than what people think. Because I think you hear Christian McCaffrey and you see his skill set and especially like how he fits with the 49ers and what he does. Man, Josh Jacobs, he's really running the ball. Like really running it. And I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know where Nick Chubb is on that list. But to me, Nick Chubb's probably like the best running back in the league. Like, you know.
Running back, yes.
Okay, there you go. Running
he
back.
doesn't really catch anything, right? I mean, 20 receptions or something. I agree.
Man, I think it'd be something like 30-2 GMs preferring McCaffrey over Josh Jacobs. Like, I don't think it would be really close. And it might be 32-0.
The tough thing is, again, and I think 49er fans, we see McCaffrey. We see his impact for the 49ers. I'd be curious to ask a Raider fan or someone, like, what was Josh Jacobs' impact on that team last year?
It was huge.
A team that wasn't great.
It was huge.
And
he was the only reason they won some games, right?
Yeah.
And the guy was a stud.
And they're probably thinking like, well, what would it look like if you put Josh Jacobs on the 49ers? Because that's typically the argument for people. Like, well, put this guy in, put Kenny Pickett on the 49ers. Like, put Brock Purdy on the Steelers. How would he fare there?
Like,
McCaffrey, that's the argument I hear from
numbers on a bad Panthers team for a few years.
But he did 1,000 and 1,000.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I watched Josh Jacobs, and he's a good player. But, I mean, he is the poster child for someone I wouldn't give a huge contract to. Maybe
whereas McCaffrey is.
Saquon. What about Saquon?
Like, I think Saquon's more of a game changer athletically and is a better pass catcher than Jacobs. So I'd rather pay Saquon than Jacobs because it could be closer to what we saw McCaffrey do as a runner receiver. I think potentially you could argue that they're both better pure runners, first down runners than McCaffrey, maybe just because they're bigger, more powerful. But that's close, and that's the least valuable part of what they all do, you know. And Josh Jacobs has had injuries. Jacobs has had like these weird kind of nagging injuries. He hasn't had like the big major injuries like McCaffrey and Saquon have had that kept him out for a long time. But even last year, he only had like 800 rushing. He had twice as many rushing yards this most recent year than last year. So there's some recency bias there. He's a good player, but he's not top. He shouldn't be sniffing a top 10 player in the NFL, in my opinion. All right. Enough bashing running backs for today. They're fun to watch. I love running backs. That's the thing. It's just the reality of the position. And that's what's hard. That question you asked a minute ago, Wink, we got to get out of here. But you have to, like, the economics of the game is going to go a certain way. It's like Moneyball we saw in baseball. And they basically had to change the rules because it's like, if you don't completely change the rules, teams are just going to keep going in that direction and shifting like crazy. And, openers to start a game instead of starting pitchers, and it starts to not look like the same game. So it depends on how much the league and fans care that running backs are getting paid. Do they care enough? because the quarterbacks are getting crazy money. Are they going to start putting salary caps on each position group? So you got a quarterback cap, a running back cap. That might be one of the only ways to do it. All right. Almost here. Next practice in Las Vegas.
Let's go.
See how many picks the 49ers can get off Jimmy Garoppolo. He's throwing them out like candy in Las Vegas already this season. Should be a lot of fun. See if the 49ers offense can do better against, I think, what everyone would consider a weaker defense. Max Crosby, though, a little ornery in camp. So got to get him blocked up for sure. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen. Back tomorrow, right here, Locked On 49ers.
See you.
Subscribe to this video.